The Huttwater collection area is an area of about 8,500 hectares. So to give you an idea of that in size, it's about 8 kilometres wide by about 10 kilometres long. It's about the size of Wellington Harbour, to put that into perspective. And basically it's an area of completely native bush that has not had any modification in terms of chainsaws cutting down the trees. It's as natural as it can be, and basically it was set aside way back in 1913, and when they finished the treatment plant, the first treatment plant back in the early 1950s, it then became known as the Huttwater collection area. And basically it comprises two major valleys, the Eastern Hutt River and the Western Hutt River, which then form into the Hutt River as we know it, which actually flows right through the Hutt Valley and out into the sea. And it was really chosen because it has an excellent amount of rainfall. The rainfall in Wellington is 1.2 metres per year on average, but up here in these mountains the rainfall average is about 2.3 metres. And basically that's because we have predominantly westerly and northerly airflows that come off the Tasman Sea. They've picked up a lot of moisture on their trip across that massive ocean, and then here in the North Island these mountain ranges, the Tararuas, which the Huttwater collection area is part of, is really the first barrier. And so the air rises to get over the mountains. As it rises, it cools, it condenses, it forms clouds, and basically it rains. So that 2.3 metres over that 80 square kilometres represents an excellent source of drinking water for the people of Wellington. And the Huttwater collection area basically supplies about 50%, as I understand it, of the drinking water to the Wellington region. The fact that we've got a largely unmodified ecosystem in there in terms of the natural beech forest means that it does support some of the birds that are more rare in other parts of Wellington. A good example is we have kaka that are found up in that area, the native bush parrot. We also find kakariki, the crested parakeet. So those types of birds, there's also the bush falcon, tells us that that ecosystem is in reasonably good health. The reason we need a good ecosystem in there in terms of forest health is because basically the forest acts as a natural filter for the rainfall. So if we had, for example, a forest that was degraded, then we might have a lot of dieback. Then when we do get heavy rain events, we're going to see greater erosion potentially. And of course that will affect the quality of the water in terms that we'll have more sediment. So that will mean there'll be less times when we're actually able to take the water from the river. And I suppose my main role in the water collection area is in 1998 with the new treatment plant that's been developed at Timarua. It was felt that the processes meant that the water quality and the management of that, the risk management, was much safer, and so they allowed people to go into the catchment, whereas previous to that it was a closed area. No recreationalist, a hunter or a tramper, was not allowed into that area. So it was really opened on a trial basis, and 10 years later it's still open to the public. There are strict rules about the public going in. Obviously we want them to self-monitor themselves, and if they've been sick with diarrhoea or something like that in the previous period, then we would require that, well, we'd hope that they wouldn't go into that area. So basically the two major catchments within the water collection area is the Eastern Hutt River and the Western Hutt River, and they basically meet at an area called the Hutt Forks and then become the Hutt River itself. And this is quite a gorgy area, and then the river is basically channeled down through towards the Kaitoki Weir. And the Kaitoki Weir is a structure that was built as part of the water infrastructure, and basically as the weir, they've lifted it up to provide some head to get a gravity feed, and then basically the water as it flows over the top of that structure, there is a steel grate, and then some of that water will drop in to the weir, and then is basically goes through a piping system towards the treatment plant itself.
Well, the steps are involved in the processing of the water from the Kaitoki intake is pH correction, when we put lime and CO2 into the water. Then we do coagulation, which we use aluminium sulfate here as the primary coagulant. Then we put a coagulant aid into the water, which also helps with the alum. And then we use a polyelectrolyte flocculating polymer, which is also what we call a filter aid polymer as well. So they're really the chemicals that we put into the water to do the treatment with. We have to maintain a minimum flow in the river, 600 litres a second over the Kaitoki weir, and that's to basically keep the bird and fish life happy and looking after the environment. Obviously there's times a year that we can't take 150 million litres of water due to low river level and summer conditions or whatever it may be, and then we use our lake system, our off-river storage, to supplement or to actually fully supply from that point. The areas where we supply water to, the reservoirs through the Upper Hutt area. Our pipeline then heads over the Haywards Hill. We backfeed as far as Pukerua Bay, and then we feed through the Porora Valley as far as Naranga. Naranga is our terminal reservoir, and that's like a bulk tank to supply the local town or city or whatever it may be. We also maintain the level in those tanks above 60%, so minimum 60% full, and that for the reason of civil defence and the earthquake reason. If the main plant went down and got broken or something went wrong, we could no longer fill those reservoirs. They'll have a bit of a residual supply in there. But also, like I said, for firefighting purposes and civil defence reasons, we've got to maintain those reservoirs. The only thing that we add really to the water, apart from the removal process, is chlorine, the disinfectant that we use in the water, and that's to maintain a residual in the reticulation system to basically prevent any bacteria reactivating. Fluoride, when was the decision made? Good question. It's been dosed ever since I've been here. I've been here like 14 years. So it's really a requirement that's, I guess, that's really been evolved with the health department that have been driving it, and through statistics throughout New Zealand and other countries as well. Those studies have proven that by using fluoride in the water, that it is definitely beneficial for the younger generation for hardening of bones and teeth. The water, you can have it could even have a physical taint of colour in it, or it could even have a slight taste or odour, but could be perfectly safe to drink. Some waters in some cases that are perfectly clear and clean could also have a number of crypto and giardia cysts in the water, but they will be undetected through taste and odour. So saying that means, really doesn't necessarily mean the perfectly looking clean water is safe to drink. It's not till you actually physically look into that water through a microscope or do some bacto testing on cultures and that you will actually find whether there's any serious bacteria or protozoa in there which could be harmful to health. If the treatment plant in the area is up to grading, like for instance this is an AA treatment plant with an A reticulation system, which means it's closely monitored as far as E. coli monitoring goes, very, very safe to drink, then I wouldn't bother with bottled water. But saying that, if I was holidaying in a different part of New Zealand, like maybe at a holiday caravan park or even just a local town or whatever, because I've been in the industry for a period of time, I'm always looking closely at those measurements and you know, how they treat their water and what's actually going on, make sure it is safe. It's a bit, if you've got the ignorance and you don't understand, then you don't worry about it, but when you've got a little bit of knowledge, it can be a bit, it can sort of prevent you and make you think on actually what you are drinking.
So in terms of getting the water from the various streams,
Technology. Just the last thing we wanted. Righto.
yeah. So the question would be really, what happens? How do? I think we've pretty much answered everything. I mean, we're over 10 minutes, so.
Oh, crikey. There you go. Half of that's been on the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Well, we'll just give it a go, see how it works out, eh?
Yeah. Far more.
There's no guarantees, of course.